Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty mind-blowing. We are going to look at how one person's chaotic, tangled family religious history actually connects perfectly to the cosmic evolution of humanity. Now, I know that sounds like a massive leap, right? But stick with me, because by the end of this, you are going to see exactly how deeply intertwined our most personal spiritual struggles are with the grand timeline of human history itself. It's really fascinating stuff. So here is our roadmap for today's deep dive. We'll start with spiritual confusion and ancestral lines, move through human evolution and faiths history, hit the world wars and the concept of Hongik Ingans, look at why global religions gather in Korea, explore the overlap of 3D and 4D, and wrap it all up with the mass of knowledge and liberation. Let's just jump right in. Starting with Section 1, Spiritual Confusion and Ancestral Lines. Our source material kicks off with this incredibly raw, relatable question from a guy in his mid-40s. He is feeling completely overwhelmed by conflicting spiritual duties and his family's history, and he's earnestly asking how he can possibly move forward when the baggage of his past is weighing him down so heavily. It's that awful feeling of being totally trapped, which, I'm sure a lot of us can relate to when dealing with heavy family expectations. Just look at this lineup. It is literally a spiritual crossfire. He's trapped between his mother's strong shamanic roots and spirit jars, his stepmother's disruptive alcohol spirits, and his father's Catholic-turned-traditional background following a tragic family loss. Caught right in the middle of all this chaos, the questioner himself desperately wandered through Buddhism, Catholicism, and various meditation practices for over 30 years just looking for answers. It's an incredibly heavy burden to carry, but it really makes you wonder, why does this kind of pileup happen to us? Well, to answer that, we're going to move into Section 2, Human Evolution and Faith's History. Let's zoom way out for a second to the macro level. For literally thousands of years, as humanity was slowly evolving to what the source calls the 30% mark, our overall knowledge was just low. So naturally, we relied on blind faith and kneeling to deities. It was a long climb, but by the early 20th century, humanity finally hit a pivotal milestone, that 30% mark of evolutionary progress. And the post-war era that followed triggered a massive, necessary transition away from blind faith and directly towards the pursuit of higher knowledge. So the crucial point here, and this is super important, is that relying on spirits or ancestral rites wasn't inherently wrong in the past. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't just not wrong, it was absolutely valid. It was simply the best tool humanity had during that specific evolutionary stage to survive and make sense of the world. But as our evolution pushed past that 30% mark, holding onto those old, outdated tools started causing the exact friction and confusion our questioner is experiencing today. All right, Section 3, World Wars and Hongik Ingans. Let's see how this global shift actually played out. The source drops a massive historical perspective here, explaining that the First and Second World Wars weren't just terrible political conflicts. They acted as a profound global reset. According to the text, this period deliberately left exactly 3 billion people on Earth to kick off the next phase of human evolution. And right alongside that massive global reset, a parallel reset happened on a smaller, highly concentrated scale. The population on the Korean Peninsula was reset to exactly 30 million people. Now do the math on that. 30 million to 3 billion. That is exactly 1 Korean for every 100 global citizens. The text argues that this mathematical ratio specifically set the stage for the Hongik Ingans generation, those post-W2 baby boomers born in Korea, to act as global leaders. Their core destiny, baked right into their generation, is to benefit all of humanity. They were set up with this precise 1 to 100 ratio to eventually act as guides for the rest of the world. Which brings us right to Section 4, Global Religions Gather in Korea. So, remember the chaotic blend of world religions right in our questioner's living room? The text suggests that heaven intentionally brought all the world's top religious cultures into Korea over the last 50 years. But here's the kicker. It was absolutely not for blind worship. It was so these future leaders could actively study comparative religion. The whole goal was to experience various faiths, roll up their sleeves, and synthesize universal knowledge, rather than falling into the trap of blindly adhering to just one dogma. So, thinking back to our questioner, those 30 years he spent wandering through Buddhism, Catholicism, and meditation, not a mistake at all. It was exactly this necessary step-by-step process of gathering global knowledge. First, you experience the diverse religious cultures directly. Next, you make sure to avoid getting trapped by any single dogma. And finally, you synthesize all those diverse experiences into high-quality universal wisdom.
He wasn't lost. He was literally just doing the required groundwork.
Now, Section 5, the overlap of 3D and 4D. To really stop wandering, we have to understand the universe's mechanics. The source describes this intricate, totally inseparable overlap between dimensions. You've got the third dimension, 3D, which is the physical world where we humans actively live, grow, and hash out our issues. And overlapping it perfectly is the fourth dimension, 4D, the spiritual world where souls are paused, working right alongside humans to resolve their lingering attachments. You have to realize these aren't far off, separate places. They are constantly interacting in the exact same space at the exact same time. It's like two layers of reality right on top of each other. And this duality maps perfectly onto us. We possess physical energy, our biological body, which functions as a vital but ultimately temporary tool for growth. And then we have soul energy, our true self, a non-material divine entity that's just learning through that physical body. Our true essence is the non-material soul. The physical body is essentially just the hardware we use to process information and evolve. When we forget this, we let the hardware, or those outside 4D spirits, dictate our lives. Finally, let's wrap this up with Section 6, massive knowledge and liberation.
Let's bring this all the way back down to the personal level. When faced with family chaos or intense spiritual pressure, why do we constantly feel the need to seek out monks, pastors, or shamans for salvation? Why do we keep wandering, suffering, and kneeling to external forces to fix our lives?
This source doesn't sugarcoat this at all. The blunt truth? Our internal mass of knowledge is currently just too low. When our understanding of how the world and these overlapping dimensions work is lacking, we become incredibly vulnerable. This low mass of knowledge is the exact thing that allows both human institutions and fourth-dimensional spirits to easily take advantage of us, just dragging us around by our fears. But here is the ultimate empowering takeaway from all of this. The source states, when your mass of knowledge is high, no spirit can use you. Instead, you discuss and resolve things together. True liberation doesn't come from fighting your ancestral lines or running away in fear. It comes from eagerly absorbing high-quality knowledge until your internal understanding is so dense and so profound that you are simply no longer swayed by blind faith or external pressures. You become the master of your own reality. So as we wrap up this explainer, here's the ultimate question to chew on. As you navigate your own spiritual journey and the wild complexities of your own family history, ask yourself, will you continue to kneel to the past, or will you build your internal knowledge to lead the future? Because the power to stop wandering and transform that confusion into liberation, it has literally always been right there in your hands. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one.